Did you know that a black panther is not actually its own cat species, but rather a black panther is a term for any big cat that has a melanistic black coat mutation? Many people are also not aware that Ontario, of all places, actually has hundreds of sightings of these waist-high black cats right in their own backyards. In the previous video, we examined Ontario's legal laws surrounding exotic pet ownership and proved that with the right circumstances, anyone can truly own any big cat they want. We also examined the most credible video footage of these animals and proved that they're very real. In this video, we're going to go over our 4 suspects for what these animals could be. Does Ontario now have an invasive population of African or Indian leopards? Or is it jaguars that have escaped captivity here in Ontario? Or perhaps we have an undiscovered mutation of a black melanistic cougar. In this video, we're going to examine all the evidence we've gathered so far to determine the truth. You're watching Discovering Ontario's Black Panthers. So to start off with our first 2 suspects, we're going to be looking at the African leopard and the Indian leopard. Now, I did some research and it became very apparent very quickly that black African leopards are very rare, extremely rare. I'd even go as far as saying almost non-existent. That's how rare they are. And since I'm estimating a population amount for black panthers in Ontario between 18 and 24 individuals, it's too much of a stretch for me to tell people that it's the African leopard. Also, when it comes to dealing with the cold, I don't think they do well. So I'm taking the African leopard immediately off of our suspect list, and I'm moving on to the next one, which would be the Indian leopard. There were many roadblocks that I hit when investigating Indian leopards being in Ontario, and I know I've mainly suspected them so far because they have a high tolerance to the cold, even going as far as overlapping territory with snow leopards in the Himalayas. I know they're good at hiding from people, and I know that India has the highest smuggling rates for leopards out of everywhere in the globe. But like I said, I ran into roadblocks. Our black panther suspect is going to come down to the animal which is kept in captivity the most. It's guaranteed almost to be our culprit. However, the problem is, as I continue doing research and checking out all the zoos in Ontario, and I'd even go as far as saying North America, the bottom line is we don't have Indian leopards here. I decided to do a little more investigating because I found it really bizarre that out of all the big cats, we have no leopards here. So I went to African Lion Safari, and when I talked to the staff there, the word I got from them was, we don't have leopards for 2 reasons. 1, availability. We just can't seem to get them. Unlike zoos in the UK, which do have leopards in their zoos and have genetically tested DNA of leopards in their wild now, here we don't have leopards. And the second reason is that they're considered very dangerous animals to keep, actually. The word she used was neurotic, which means she was saying further that they're unpredictable and they're untrainable and they're dangerous animals to keep. And third reason is they don't bring in the crowds compared to what a jaguar would, because the jaguar is a lot bigger. So for all those reasons, guys, it's actually time to take the Indian leopard off of our suspect list. As for our third suspect, the jaguar, she did tell me that they are kept here in captivity in Ontario because they're considered a little more trainable, because they're considered not as dangerous and more predictable. So when it comes to black panthers being kept in captivity in Ontario, the only one that is kept is a jaguar. What I did find interesting, however, though, is that there actually are newspaper headlines out there of jaguars escaping captivity, even here in Ontario. This is now a proven concept that jaguars escape captivity and get into the Ontario woods. And this leaves only 2 suspects remaining. We're going to look at the submitted videos people have sent to me, and we're going to let the videos speak for themselves, and we're going to compare these 2 big cats' bodies and its proportions to what people have recorded. This will help us verify what animal people are seeing. So as you can see here, there are some obvious differences immediately. Jaguars are a lot more bulky and larger of a cat than a cougar. Jaguars have a very convex shaped back, while the cougar has more of a concave shaped back. The neck of a jaguar is a lot thicker. The belly of a cougar may sometimes angle upwards on the weight of the tail. Please do remember that these animals are not approaching people, so they are filmed very far away, which is why these videos appear so blurry. They have been cropped to help us zoom in on what the true shape and movements of these animals are. Let's start off with my personal favorite, and this was captured on the outskirts of Quebec City just a few years ago, and to me it's very obvious it matches the body shape of a cougar and not that of a jaguar. Moving on to our next photograph. This actually is a video where it appeared that a black cougar was hunting a black lab dog. And as you can see, their reactions are very genuine.
Yes, it is.
No, it's not. It's a dog.
Why is there two of them that look the same, Neds?
I don't know.
Cougar.
No, is it?
Yes, those are cougars.
No. Oh my God! No way.
Yeah, those are huge cougars.
Now I managed to
God.
screenshot a few frames, and when comparing the body, it does resemble that of a cougar rather than a jaguar. Moving on to our next photo. This is captured in someone's backyard in Tweed. There's a lot of sightings around the area of Tweed. I'd actually say it's one of the top 3 hotspots. And people don't realize the size of this animal sometimes, and I find that really bizarre.
I don't know who to call.
Because clearly it's a big animal in someone's backyard, and it's filmed from a considerable distance away. And the people's reactions are very genuine, suggesting so.
See how it walks? That's crazy.
Now, when looking at the photographs here, I do have to lean toward it being a black cougar just because the size is a little bit on the small end, and also the features match a cougar better. And this is a photograph that started the investigation. They believed it to be a jaguar, and when I investigated it personally, I also do believe it indeed to be a jaguar. In my previous video, I visited this sighting location, and I gathered a lot of great comparison videos which prove this to be a very real animal. Eyewitness claims it was a black cougar, and myself personally, I also do agree with the eyewitness and believe this does match the body of a cougar. So this was a video captured many years ago now. There was a lot of animal rights newspapers going on around this time. When I took the time to slow down the video and screenshot the best frames that had the body of the animal appear, I do actually believe this animal to be a jaguar and not a cougar. Now, if you look at the movement of this animal, when it steps with its front legs, it's stepping again there with its hind legs. And this is typical of movement of big cats, which means it was unlikely for this to be a dog. And as you can see, compared with a house cat, it's obviously not a house cat either. So when examining the body of this animal, I do believe this to indeed be a juvenile black cougar. This is a photo that has gained a lot of traction on the internet, and it's a good photo. It's just an hour and a half, I'd say, away from Windsor. And when examining it, I do believe it to be a jaguar. This was filmed in Manitoba at the start of this year. It actually made newspaper headlines. You can really tell it has quite the tall legs, slender body, and flexible movement. I took the best frames from this video. I do believe indeed this animal was a black cougar. So as you just saw, most of the videos actually did not match a jaguar. Does that mean that we need to now take them off as being a suspect entirely? Well, no. Because, as I said earlier, it has been genuinely proven that jaguars do escape captivity, even here in Ontario. So to say that none of the sightings are jaguars at all would be ridiculous. What we need to ask instead is how many of the sightings likely are jaguars. People keeping jaguars is definitely the minority. Most people don't really care for it when they have lions and tigers available. So the availability for them being released here or escaped in Ontario is a little low. I know I've said in the previous video that these animals are kept outdoors in zoos all year long, and that they have heat pads which help them, survive the winter. But really, without human care, human provided warmth and shelter, would these animals really last longer than 1 or 2 winters? The moment we get a -30 cold spell that lasts a few days, the animal probably is going to die. So with that in mind, Jaguar sightings are going to be short-lived. What's left is our last suspect, one which I personally never suspected as being possible, one that I compared to being a unicorn. But am I disappointed? No. I think this is amazing. Instead of tracking in a possible invasive species, we're discovering a new animal. So what's our last left? Our last suspect left, that would be a melanistic, undiscovered cougar. I'm all giddy about it. It's unreal. But like Spock once said, once you eliminate the impossible, whatever remains, however improbable, must be the truth. When you look at the map of sightings as well, it kind of lines up, because anytime a captive animal gets released, like in the UK or Australia, the sightings kind of make a little cluster. There's an area known for sightings in that area exclusively. However, here in Ontario, in New Brunswick, in Michigan, in Wisconsin, in Quebec, sightings are all over the place, suggesting instead of a captively released animal, a native one. So, I guess the question would be then, how would this ever be possible? How could we have melanistic cougars roaming undiscovered in our backyard? And like, for example, the scientists have estimated that albino cougars are 1 in 10,000 individuals. But as I can tell you guys right now, I have been really researching this a lot for the past few months, and I have come up with three solid theories, which I'm going to share with you guys now. So for theory number 1, we actually need to go back in history and look at the eastern cougar. Now, this animal right now is declared extinct in Canada and in North America as a whole. However, there are a lot of people who would argue that. And historically speaking, there was persecution here of the cougars, and that's what led to their extinction. There was a bounty put on them, so everyone went out to shoot them so they could gain money. And what's interesting about recessive genes like melanism is they can become more common through human interference. For example, if I have a fish tank and let's say I have 1,000 shrimp in that fish tank, and most of them are red, but I only have 50 that are blue, the most effective way for me to make sure that all the shrimp are blue is to remove or kill all the red shrimp. That way, even if the blue shrimp proceed to have offspring that are red, the blue gene is a lot more common. The same thing could have happened with cougars here in eastern Canada. What's interesting about black panthers, they're more active at night than they are during the day in comparison to their normal counterparts. And the theory would be that when all the shooting happened and all the bounties and the persecution of the cougars back in the 1800s here, that due to any very rare black cougars kind of only coming out in the nighttime, that might have been the thing that saved them. Because maybe a few brave individuals hunt at night, but most people don't, especially back then in the 1800s. So in theory, all the shooting of the normal cougars could have made it so that only at that point in time, only the black ones survived. However, let's move on to theory number 2. If you want more evidence, you might find this one interesting. As many of you pointed out in the previous video, melanism is a lot more common in big cats where it's a tropical climate, like Brazil or Thailand, for example. And a lot of people say that it's very unlikely for Canada to have melanism here because we have a cold climate. But some people argue that, pointing at our black squirrels as an example. However, what you might personally find interesting to know is 2 things. 1, South America actually does have reports of black cougars, the same as we do. And 2, Canada actually has pumas. I'm going to say that again. So there was a study done in Quebec by their government where they were testing for evidence of cougars. And they put a lot of hair traps around, right? Half of the hair traps, when they tested the DNA, proved to be from a South American or Central American cougar known as a puma. So here in Canada, we actually do have South American cougars roaming in our backyards. So if the tropical genes are there inside those cougars, which at one time were released pets, Perhaps the environment here has triggered that melanistic gene. So this brings us to theory number 3. And to me personally, this is the one that makes the most logical sense. We have 2 types here now, in theory. We have the eastern cougar, which is presumed extinct and has a high likelihood of having a melanistic coat, right? And we have the South American puma, which also has a fairly high likelihood in theory of having a melanistic coat. But very likely these 2 subspecies are breeding together, right? Because the eastern cougar is critically endangered and there's not hundreds of thousands of pumas being released, only some here and there. So very likely what we have here now in eastern Canada is kind of a mutt breed of cougar, kind of like a hybrid, even though they're technically the same species. So very likely this mix is why we're spotting them all over the place now, why Ontario has a 1 in 5 ratio when it comes to sightings of these big cats being black. But really, where would the proof be at all for a black cougar ever existing, right? Doing some digging, I was able to find a little bit of proof to make it a little more plausible. You see, there was this photograph which was taken in Costa Rica back in the, I think, early 1900s, and it's a heavily debated photo. Some people are saying it's not black, but it's dark brown. I'll let you guys decide what you think it is. And there are reports here and there of ones getting shot in the States from the early 1900s. There's also a few individuals who have done a lot of work to try and prove that a black cougar exists. I have a colleague, and she has investigated black cougars a lot longer than I ever have. What she's told me was 2 things I found especially interesting. She told me that she has been in contact with one of the top Jaguar specialists in the world. And this specialist, this highly educated person, believed that this photograph here was not a Jaguar. He said that it does not match the physical description, or requirements rather. However, I gotta agree with you, it's a terrible photo. It angers my very soul, because any identifying features that could have no doubt completely identified it as a black puma have been cropped out. And unfortunately, that's what he sent my colleague, so that's all I got. But I'll let you guys decide what you think about that. There's also a government document from British Columbia which talks about roadkill, and in that document they also acknowledge a black cougar. So one maybe got hit by a car or something but never got tested. There's also Rick Rosette's work as well, which has started the series off to begin with. He listed credible reports, and he showed that Guelph photograph. And from my own research, like, a lot of people who see these animals are not people who just casually make a mistake like that. They're zookeepers or wildlife technicians or wildlife rehabilitators, people who actually have spent time around these animals. So it's very unlikely that they wouldn't mistake a house cat for a giant black cougar. They're not the individuals to make that mistake. What you guys could do to help the project, honestly, is if you have ever seen one of these black cougars, or you know someone who has seen a black cougar, have them message me, guys. I need that information. I need to know where was the exact location where they saw it and how many years ago it was. And if they have any videos or photographs, oh, that's amazing. But it's not necessary, because to track these animals and prove they're here, I just need a location and a timestamp. So please, if you have information like that, send it to my email, fishingurbanontario@gmail.com. I'd love to hear from you, and I'll get back to you as soon as I realistically can. So as I mentioned at the start of this video, the goal of this series, Discovering Ontario's Black Panthers, is I want to become the first person in all of Ontario to prove that we truly do have these animals roaming in our backyards. But the only way really to do that is for me myself to go out and get undeniable video footage. So that's exactly what I'm planning to do in the future. Would you like to know what's happening on the future of this series? Well, I'm going to visit the top 3 sighting locations in all of Ontario for Black Panther sightings. And at location number 1, I'm actually going to spend the night there. I'm going to camp out, I'm going to search every tree if I have to, and I'm going to even look for them after dark. So that might be a video that you don't want to miss out on. But as I remind you guys often, just keep in mind, like, I'm not a scientist. I'm just a random guy on YouTube, and I'm really just figuring out this puzzle in the order that I get the pieces. So there's a lot more work to be done still on this project. However, if you have enjoyed this video, I would highly suggest for you guys to hit the subscribe button down below, because you're not going to want to miss out, right? I work hard on these videos, I truly do, and I try and have them be informative and educational and fun to watch as much as I can. And if you enjoyed this video, you're not going to want to miss out on the future ones that are coming. Anyways, thank you guys for watching. You guys are awesome, and take care.